Star Wars just got its greatest card game ever, and I'm going to tell you why you should give it a go even if you're new to card games. Let me explain why the Force is so strong with this one. Starting from the beginning. There are few things I love as much as Star Wars. I love the films, the shows, the comics, the games. I love it all, even when the quality varies wildly. Star Wars has had a long-standing presence in the world of card games too, with many collectible card games from many different developers. And though some have had their niche followings, most simply never went anywhere. Star Wars Unlimited is a new trading card game developed by the infamous Fantasy Flight Games. When it released its first set, Spark of Rebellion, many stores did not want to take the gamble on it, partly because of the recent saturation of TCGs, but also because FFG has an unfortunate reputation for dropping support for games after a short time. The result of this decision? Regret. Star Wars Unlimited blew up massively, unlike any Star Wars card game before it, selling well beyond the wildest expectations of its creators and meeting a demand it simply couldn't match. Many stores tried to muscle in on the success with the second set, Shadows of the Galaxy, but why did it blow up when Star Wars card games have come and gone for years? I'll tell you why. Because it's really, really good.
Great shot, kid. That was 1 in a million.
The Force is strong with this one. Let's begin by stating the obvious. This is Star Wars, which means there was always going to be a core audience of devotees well before the game came to market. It is chock full of lovingly handled references to all the characters and events that you know and love. Only 2 sets in, and FFG have already made clear their appreciation not only for the films but Star Wars media on the whole. Everything from your favourite animated underworld crooks like Cad Bane to comic book visitors like Dr. Aphra. Everything seems to be on the table. For serious Star Wars fans, this game is a wet dream by content alone. But I didn't make this video for them. I made this video for TCG enthusiasts who have overlooked it, and for those that have not played TCGs at all, but may yet have been lured here by the will of the Force. If you watched my video on Flesh and Blood, then you know that that's my favourite TCG of all. But that's not a game I can easily suggest to first-time card game players. Star Wars Unlimited though, this is a game I can wholeheartedly recommend to beginners. It's very easy to learn, and the cards are both easy and, mostly, cheap to acquire. Fantasy Flight Games makes beautifully designed 2-player starter decks featuring some of the most popular characters that offer everything you need to pick up and play. After only a couple of games, you'll easily pick up the core mechanics of the game and be having a blast. For less serious card gamers, even just these starter decks alone may be all you need to have some fun with a friend on your kitchen counter.
You fought in the Clone Wars?
I don't believe that the rich lore of the Star Wars universe has ever been used to such wonderful effect in a tabletop game as it is in Star Wars Unlimited. I will cover the mechanics of the game soon, but for now, let it be known that all cards in the game have one or more aspects. Cards that represent cunning, vigilance, aggression, command, and of course both heroism and villainy. The mechanics of every card fit beautifully into their associated themes. A player chooses a commander to lead their forces and a base to represent the health of the player. These 2 choices give you access to cards of the associated aspects, or colours to keep things simple. The game offers a huge variety of different beloved characters to take command, each with their own unique mechanics and themes. Take the infamous Grand Admiral Thrawn, for example. Renowned for his wit and tactical genius, Thrawn is a character that is always one step ahead of the heroes. This is represented beautifully in the card's mechanics. At the start of each turn, you may see the top card of each deck. You know what your opponent will do even before they do, and with his active ability you can slow your enemy down. Paired with his capital ship, the Chimera, you will make use of your knowledge to foil the enemy's plan before it even begins, removing from their hand the cards you foresaw before they can even be played. And this is just one small example. Be you an Imperial loyalist, a rebel scum, or infamous underworld crime boss, the game is bursting with flavor wins and thematic synergies. Star Wars Unlimited is a game with many familiar mechanics that you will recognize from other games. If I had to directly compare it to one other game, I would say it shares a great deal in common with Hearthstone in terms of how it plays and how things function. Although it carries many staple mechanics of classic TCGs, there are some fundamental, unique differences that make Star Wars Unlimited feel really special. Firstly, like many modern TCGs, it has a resource system that is vastly superior to the card games of old. At the start of each round, each player draws 2 cards and may place a single card of choice from their hand face down to become a resource, including 2 cards that are resourced when the game begins. You will always be able to resource every turn if you wish, but you also have the choice of foregoing a resource if you wish to instead keep the extra cards. This eliminates the resource scarcity of old, but also presents players with some interesting decisions. The second expansion also introduced smuggle cards that can be played from the resource zone for special costs to surprise and ambush your opponent. Secondly, the game is played on 2 separate battlefields. The battle on the ground and the battle in space. Units are specifically played into one field or the other, and players must be ready to answer threats from both directions, though some rare cards do allow the 2 battlefields to interact. Thirdly, and this is probably the most important difference, players alternate actions. Every time you play a card, make an attack or perform an action, your opponent then gets to perform an action as well. You go back and forth until both players have passed and a new round begins. This fundamental difference alters completely the flow of the game from other similar TCGs. You don't sit, look at your hand and just vomit all your cards out during your turn. Every action you take will have a reaction from your opponent. Your best laid plans had better be flexible because in just 1 or 2 actions, your clever plot may be unravelled. This game is about making careful and clever decisions. The order in which you attack with units or play cards is of vital importance, and every small decision will have a profound effect on the outcome of the game. Between this and the fact that there is no instant speed interaction, you have a game that is incredibly interactive. The first player to claim the initiative will no longer be able to perform actions, but is guaranteed to go first in the next round. Even just deciding to make one more action late into the round risks allowing your opponent to claim the initiative. This to and fro gameplay system leads to some of the most tension I've experienced in a card game. Positively thrilling. The last core mechanic I wish to mention is that of your commander. As I mentioned, you may choose your commander from a plethora of beloved Star Wars characters. They sit passively in their own section of the board, providing support with their special abilities. However, Once per game, they can also be flipped over to join the battle themselves and assume direct command. The simple act of deploying your character can completely change the tempo of the game, particularly when they have powerful stats and effects. Everyone's favourite dark dad of the Sith, Darth Vader for example, has a relatively minor effect with some utility when in the command zone. Once you meet the conditions to deploy him, however, he immediately impacts the state of the game. His unit alone is incredibly powerful and threatening, and has an ability that allows him to dominate the battlefield, and rightly so. Other commanders can have a significant effect on the game indirectly. Boba Fett, for example, can be activated when an opposing unit leaves the field to ready a resource that you have spent. If used cleverly though, he can then deploy and cause a further 2 resources to be readied. This huge momentum stealing turn can only be done once per game if the conditions are met, but can make a huge impact if done correctly. Star Wars Unlimited is off to a roaring start. I personally play the game at 2 different LGSs, and both have seen an influx of the expected Star Wars fanbase and players altogether new to trading card games, lured by the temptations of the dark side into our wretched hives of gaming and villainy. Star Wars is for everyone, and the same is true of the TCG also. There's also much to be said for the simplicity of the product lines and collectability. There are starter decks, main set releases consisting of a single type of booster box, and accessories to make play more pleasurable. That's it, one main box and starter decks. It is like a breath of fresh air. Both sets have had ample time to breathe. The cards and archetypes are being explored and experimented with every week. By the time set 2 came out, I was desperate for it. This is how card games should be. Collectability is equally digestible. Card anatomy is immediately easy to understand, and so are the rarities. Common, uncommon, rare, and legendary. Every card could be shiny, have extended art, or both. Special showcase cards exist for collectors and are very hard to come by, but offer no advantages to gameplay. They just look great and appeal to character enthusiasts. Pretty easy, in my opinion. And best of all, people are trading like crazy from their binders, just like the good old days. Every week, people are hectically swapping between themselves to experiment with exciting new deck lists. I feel like the trading part of TCGs has died in many places, but not, it seems, in Star Wars Unlimited. This is Jedi Master Doom Idio-Ti reporting to the Council. I have investigated this strange disturbance in the Force, and much has been revealed to me. A strange Force cult is forming in the shadows of the Outer Rim, its numbers growing day by day. Whether their adherence to the light or the dark, I cannot say, but they obsess over this strange card game wholly unlike our dear Pazak. I have secured some samples and have been researching them with my young Padawan learner. The game is accessible and easy to learn, the cards easy to acquire. They depict fabled heroes and villains from our past, featuring even members of the Council. I know not the purpose of this, but there is a strange allure to some, which shimmer and shine as beautifully as Kyber. Perhaps this is why more and more are being drawn in from across the galaxy. The mechanics are familiar yet strange, enthralling, thrilling even. I feel an unnatural pleasure when engaging with the game. I find that it is occupying my thoughts often, creeping into my mind even in my meditations. I've found myself bartering with many of these strange cultists, exchanging cards for the ones I require. For my research, of course. They seem to have accepted us into the fold with kindness and understanding. My Padawan is studying the heroes depicted in these cards and trying to find the source of them, to see where they're coming from. I am rather more concerned with where this is all going. I find myself fascinated by these dreadful villains. I cannot deny that their darkness holds a certain allure. I fear I shall be returning much later than planned. I feel I must stay longer. Yeah, I have to keep digging after all. There has to be something behind all of this. The force is so strong here that it has become intoxicating. Yeah, I shall stay. Not to revel in all this, you understand, but for the good of the galaxy, of course. Now I shall take my leave, if you don't mind. There's so much left to learn, much further, deeper, yet to go. This is Idio-Ti, checking out. If you enjoyed my video, please consider subscribing and hitting the little bell icon so you know when I upload more videos. And if you want to tell me what you think of the game, have a little chat with me in the comments. I really appreciate your time and attention. Goodbye.